In the beautiful city of Okoja, which was widely known for its bustling market and sincere traders, there lived a very successful and renowned food seller known as Mamie Ifun. She was widely known by the indigenous people of Okoja and strangers from afar for her delicious soups and tasty meals. Mamie Ifun was not born in Okoja, and she had no relatives there either. In fact, 5 years ago, no one knew who Mamie Ifun was. It was rumored that she came to the city of Okoja from a distant town. She came to the city of Okoja carrying nothing but a rusty pot, a small sack of herbs, and a strange calabash. Within weeks of her arrival, Mamie Ifun opened a food stall in the marketplace. She made thick, spicy stew and pepper soup with the aroma of smoked fish and native spices. Her food was unlike anything the villagers had ever tasted. Her food was so delicious that even the most respected chiefs and hunters abandoned their wives' cooking to eat at Mamie Ifun's stand. People also flocked from distant villages just to get a spoonful of her meals. As the days grew into weeks, and weeks slid into months, Mamie Ifun became more than a cook in the village of Okoja. She became a phenomenon, a word people spoke softly, like prayer or curse. She never raised her voice, bargained, or begged. Yet, people lined up long before her fire was lit, holding their bowls in one hand and money in the other hand, waiting for her meals as if it were medicine for the soul. Everyone had something to say about Mamie Ifun, and strange things also began to happen. The hunters who tasted her food claimed that it made them stronger during their hunts in the forest, and it made their targets sharper. The children who tasted her food refused to eat anything else but Mamie Ifun's meals. But as the days went by, stranger things were also noticed. A thief who stole from Mamie Ifun's basket in the night was found crawling the next morning with a swollen tongue, muttering, "The stew is watching me." A jealous woman who tried to sabotage Mamie Ifun's pot of soup by pouring excess salt into Mamie Ifun's pot lost her sense of taste for 7 complete days. But despite the dark rumors flying all around, Mama Ifun remained calm and quiet, as though she was deaf to their assumptions. The children called her Mama Ash. The market women called her the spirit's cook. And all the men in the village were addicted to her meals. The other food sellers all lost their customers to Mamie Ifun because no one patronized them anymore. They found it strange that people would rather buy Mamie Ifun's expensive meals rather than patronize them. They started to complain. "She must be using charms or dark magic," one of the other food sellers said. "I agree with you. No one's food can taste that good every single day," another food seller added. But no one could prove anything, so their suspicions were regarded as mere rumors. However, they were right. Mamie Ifun's success wasn't by sheer luck or cooking skills either. In fact, Mamie Ifun was no ordinary woman. Mamie Ifun came from a strange and quiet village called Adugba, hidden from the eyes of most people. The people of Adugba were beautiful and polite, but something about them was mysterious and didn't feel right. If a stranger stayed too long, they would start to forget where they came from. Some who went to Adugba never returned at all. But the most fascinating thing about Adugba village was its special kind of cooking. The women in the village were trained to use not just spices and herbs, but parts of themselves, like their urine, blood, or hair, to make food that could control people's minds. This made their husbands fall deeply in love with them and to also do their biddings. If they desired any man, all they needed to do was to ensure the man eats any food prepared by them, and he would forget his family and become theirs forever. However, there was a rule. No woman must steal the husband of another indigene in Adugba village. But Mamie Adugba broke this rule and was banished from the village. After her banishment, she relocated to the village of Okoja and started using the special kind of cooking to gain fame and customers in Okoja. A curious young girl named Obianuju, who lived nearby and helped her mother sell vegetables, noticed something strange about Mamie Ifun. She observed that Mamie Ifun would fetch water from the stream every morning before the sun rose, then disappear into her hut for some hours. Later on, she would appear with a strange calabash, which contained something unknown, and pour its contents into each pot of food she was cooking, making sure that no one else was seeing her. Obianuju also noticed that Mamie Ifun wouldn't allow anyone to help her when preparing her food. One fateful day, Obianuju made up her mind to find out what Mamie Ifun does inside the hut. After fetching water from the stream, she was determined to know the contents inside the strange calabash which Mamie Ifun always adds to her food. That fateful morning, Obianuju followed her quietly and stealthily. When Mamie Ifun entered her hut, Obianuju went behind Mamie Ifun's hut and peeped through a small crack in the wall. As Obianuju watched patiently, she saw something that shocked her to the bone. Obianuju watched as Mamie Ifun squatted over the strange calabash and urinated into it. Beside Mamie Ifun was another pot which contained a dark red liquid that looked a lot like blood. Obianuju watched as Mamie Ifun poured the dark red liquid into the strange calabash as well. Then she cut off some hair from her armpit and mixed everything inside the strange calabash while mumbling some inaudible incantations. When Mamie Ifun was done, she went out with a strange calabash and poured its abominable contents into every pot of food she was cooking. She stirred the pots and then poured a spoon of meal from each pot into the fire before closing the pot once again. Obianuju was terrified by what she saw. She ran home as fast as her small legs could carry her and told her grandmother, Mama Eze. Mama Eze is the oldest and wisest woman in the village of Okoja. After Obianuju finished narrating all she witnessed, Mama Eze's face grew dark with anger. That woman is using Ogwu Aru. It is a cursed portion made with bodily fluids. It binds people's souls through their stomachs. That's why her customers always return, not because of the taste of her food, but because their spirits are tied to her calabash, Mama Eze explained. There are 3 rules that she must follow at all times. She must never serve food during a full moon. She must never speak the incantations out loud, and finally, she must always feed the first spoon from each pot to the fire. If she breaks one of these rules, it would be her end, Mama Eze continued. Mamie Ifun knew these rules, and she always made sure to follow them at all times. But after Mama Eze discovered the secret to Mamie Ifun's irresistible food, she decided to do something about it. She met with the king and told him of her discovery, but without proof, there was nothing the king could do. So Mama Eze devised a plan to destroy Mamie Ifun and expose her to the villagers. Mama Eze told the king to announce a grand celebration in Okoja during the next full moon. There would be drumming, dancing, and a grand feast. She also told the king to inform the villagers that the best cook during the grand celebration would be given a huge plot of land as a reward by the king. When Mamie Ifun heard of the grand celebration and the promised reward, she leaped with joy, not because of the reward promised, but because the king would be in attendance, and if he eats her food, he would forever be under his control, and she could become the queen of Okoja village if she wanted to. However, Mamie Ifun had an obstacle. The celebration would take place on the day of the full moon, and it is forbidden for her to serve any meal under the full moon. Unknown to her, that it was a scheme by Mama Eze to expose her to the villagers. Puzzled by the clash of events, Mamie Ifun went deep into the forest in search of a very powerful herbalist known as Ikuku. When she finally found him, she explained her plight and pleaded with Ikuku to help her shield the moon on the day of the celebration so she would cook and serve the leaders of the village. Ikuku told her it would be a difficult task and would require a huge price. But Mamie Ifun promised Ikuku that she would pay whatever is demanded of her after the celebration has taken place. I would have the king in my pocket. Whatever you desire, I am certain I can grant it, Mamie Ifun told Ikuku confidently. Ikuku consulted with his deities, and after some minutes of incantations and mumblings, he turned to Mamie Ifun and told her that her wish can be granted. However, the moon can only be concealed for 1 hour. After that, Its light cannot be hidden any further. Mamie Ifun assured him that 1 hour is enough, and a pact was made. On that fateful night, Mamie Ifun prepared all she needed to cook her meals as usual and began to wait for the moon to be hidden before she started cooking. As soon as the moonlight was hidden, just as Ikuku promised, Mama Ifun started cooking, adding her ingredients and stirring each pot as fast as she could, so as to finish cooking and serving the villagers before the moon would be revealed again. The village square was filled with a lot of people, including strangers from far away who had come to witness the grand celebration. The king became very disappointed in Mama Ease, believing that she had lied against Mamie Ifun. If truly what you said about her was true, she wouldn't dare to cook knowing today is a full moon, the king told Mama Ease with disappointment written all over his face. But as Mamie Ifun raced against the clock to carry out her plan, she forgot to feed the first spoon of her meal to the fire. As soon as the food was ready, she started serving the villagers immediately, starting from the king and the elders of the village. As she handed the plate of delicious pepper soup to the king, he could see Mama Ease shaking her head in disapproval, but he ignored her. As everyone ate and praised her stew, the full moon appeared once again, and Mamie Ifun smiled to herself, knowing she had finally achieved her aim, unknown to her that she had made a grave mistake by forgetting the last rule. As the villagers continued to eat, something strange happened. A strange wind blew through the village square, putting out the fire under Mamie Ifun's pots. The air suddenly became filled with the smell of the combination of spoiled blood, rotten skin, and urine. The whole villagers threw away the plates of food and pepper soup which they were feasting on, and watched in horror as maggots crawled out from its contents. Then a deep and angry voice came, not from a person, but from within Mamie Ifun's pot. She broke the sacred oath. She fed the living before the flame. The spirit must eat before any living mouth does, or they will feed on you. She must pay the price. The pot of soup suddenly burst open, and dark smoke spilled out, forming the face of a woman with red eyes and sharp teeth. Mamie Ifun screamed at the top of her voice as the spirit dragged her into the pot, her body twisting and shrinking until she was trapped in her own cooking pot. The king and the elders of the villages were shocked as everything unfolded right before their very eyes. Scared and confused, the king asked Mama Ease what they should do next. Under Mama Ease's instructions, the pot in which Mamie Ifun was dragged in was sealed and buried under a very big tree in front of the village. The villagers learned a great lesson, and everyone started becoming conscious of where they buy food from. Morals. 1. Not all success is pure. True greatness is built on honesty, not witchcraft or deceit. 2. Be mindful of what you consume. Food can nourish the body or poison the soul, depending on the hands that prepared it. 3. The spiritual world is real. Every physical act can carry spiritual consequences, good or evil. 4. Secrets done in darkness will always be exposed in the light. Lies may last a while, but truth walks with time and always catches up. 5. Shortcuts often lead to destruction. The path of greed and sorcery may rise quickly, but it falls even faster. 6. Respect the wisdom of elders. Their knowledge and spiritual insight can save a community from hidden harm. 7. Do not envy the success of others. What looks like a blessing may be a curse in disguise. 8. Beware of desires that overpower your values. The hunger for respect, wealth, or fame should never drive you to forsake your soul.